Welcome to another episode. I'm so excited to chat with today's guest. Today we have Dr. Catherine Darley, who is the leader in natural sleep medicine. And if you've listened to this podcast for any time, you will know that nature and healing and sleep and wellness and well-being, that's our jam. So I'm so excited to have a conversation about how we can strengthen our circadian rhythm to improve sleep and daytime vitality because Catherine combines her knowledge of sleep and circadian disorders with her training as a neuropathic physician to bridge these two fields. She has worked with patients for over 20 years, along with training healthcare providers in sleep medicine and so much more. I cannot wait to get into all of this. But let's say hi to Catherine. Catherine, how are you today?
Hi, everyone. Glad to be here.
So excited to have you. So I kind of ran through a little bit of your bio, but tell us a little bit more about you. What led you to specialize in sleep and circadian rhythm, and we will take it from there.
Yeah, so I feel like sleep is really my life work, and I focus on translating the science into actions that people can use to improve their sleep, improve their well being. If you don't have sleep, you really can't have well being. And so I got started in college with some research projects that led to a job offer at a research lab looking at kids sleep as they go through puberty and all the changes. Teens being night owls is really about their physiology. It's not about their choices. That's a really common misperception. And then I went to naturopathic medical school with an eye on becoming a naturopathic sleep expert. I have my own clinic in Seattle, Washington, and work with people of all ages. I've been fortunate enough to work with people as old as 101 to improve their sleep, improve their circadian health, and their overall health. And then I do lots of trainings. One thing that people may not know is that most medical schools don't include more than 2 hours of sleep education. So you should be sleeping more hours in one day than the medical doctors have gotten trained in 4 years. So it's largely an undiagnosed area.
And it's such a huge area of our lives. As you said, like without sleep, we don't have well-being, we don't have life, we don't have success, we don't have anything that we want. And yet, sleep can be like improving our sleep. Doesn't have to be a rocket science. It doesn't have to cost lots of money, a lot of time. So I'm so excited and looking forward to get some tips and tricks and insights into how we can improve sleep. But before we go into the practical bits, I would love to chat a bit more about the circadian rhythm because it's something that definitely appears a lot in your bio and in your content that you do. And it's something that's now more and more discussed in this health and well-being sphere, but not everyone may be really sure what it is. What is the circadian rhythm? Kind of touched on it with, sometimes it is genuine our biology that makes us want to sleep or not want to sleep or change our patterns. So could we explore this for a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. So circadian, circa means around and dian means day. So these are those 24-hour patterns. And we all are really familiar with sleep at night, be awake during the day. That's a really basic circadian pattern. But what people don't necessarily know is that even at the cellular level in our DNA, we have what are called clock genes, and that makes your cells and therefore your tissues do more or less of their function at different times of day. Let's give an example. So, for example, your digestion, your whole digestive system is programmed to have the circadian pattern where it's active and can digest well during the day, but then be more in a quiet rest recovery state at night. If you've ever worked shift work, worked overnight, stayed up overnight for a project, gotten up really early for a travel day, and tried to eat at a time that you're usually asleep, often the food just sits there and you can't digest it. It's because your circadian rhythm of your digestion is turned off. And if we look at pretty much every cell type, every tissue type in the body, we see a circadian pattern. And that's really hardwired. The part that in your brain that determines your circadian rhythm also determines whether you are a morning lark or a night owl or neither. It's about a third of people fall into each of those categories. That is determined in your brain. Sometimes I think, at least here where I am, there's some shaming and blaming around people for people who are night owls, that, oh, if you just were more motivated about your job, you could get up in the mornings, or if you were more disciplined about going to bed on time. But it's really not about that. Their bodies are just programmed for later sleep hours.
And talking about shaming and the cycles, one thing that is a bit of my obsession is also finding the differences between men and women, because we live pretty much in society designed by men for men, which means we have linear schedules, we have linear working hours. And yet we know that on top of the circadian, the daily rhythm, specifically as women, we have our monthly cycles. And on top of it, we could talk to so many different cycles that we as human beings live through. So I think it's interesting that you touched on this as well, because I think that it's part of it. The biology is, if you're more of a morning person, you're more of an evening person, and then you still need to fit into a society that then dictates based on someone's linear hormone levels versus someone who has a bit more weekly fluent kind of
Right.
hormone levels.
Yeah, well, one of the really interesting areas of research is looking at smaller villages that don't have electricity, even modern day small villages that don't have electricity. And one really interesting study, they measured when the adults slept over a month. And it was, I think, about 56 adults in this small village, no electricity. And they found that there was only 17 minutes in the entire month that all of the adults were asleep. And think about it in terms of human history and, many thousands of years that people lived in small groups and maybe didn't have such secure housing. Maybe there was more predators or whatnot. It is adaptive to have an adult always up, able to watch out for the crowd, put a log on the fire, take care of children or people who are ill. And, we don't want to lose sight of how this individual variability really serves us as a group and as a society. And you mentioned women. Women tend to be slightly more morning types. And we get to be more morning types as we get older, also, typically.
And I'm sure that even in the sleep research, there will be something that tells us a lot more about how many hours do we need, again, the differences between ages and genders, how much the quality of sleep will change during our life. So when we're talking about improving our sleep, the first thing that I'm really realizing is how individual it is. But is there something more general that we could start looking into that you can teach us about? Well, if we're paying attention to our circadian rhythm, this is how we can start individually improving and tweaking and understanding. I think oftentimes it's just understanding our patterns and what we need and leaning more into what we need and trying to let go and work with what we kind of have adapted somehow through the society we live in.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think about our sleep health in three areas. We want to have right timing in terms, well, let me go over the three. We want to have right timing in terms of what time we're sleeping. Are we a morning person, a night person, etc.? Then we want to have the right amount of sleep every night, whether you're someone who needs 8.25 hours, someone who needs 7.5, 9, whatever your set point is. And then we want to have good sleep quality, which means treating any sleep disorders and also creating an environment that really promotes our sleep and we don't have disturbances in our bedroom. One of the main concerns, which is kind of a relatively easy, not easy thing to address, is just how much sleep do you do best with? I think lots of people are not sure how much sleep that they do best with. A couple tips here. A couple ways you can figure out how much sleep you do best with. You can think back to a time that you were really well rested. You were cognitively snappy, you were safe on the road, you were emotionally even keel. How much sleep were you getting at that point? The other thing to know is that if you're waking up to an alarm, either an old-fashioned alarm like this or your phone alarm, you are not getting enough sleep. You have cut short your sleep. That is a really novel idea for a lot of people. If you are waking up to an alarm regularly, you can increase your time in bed by 15 minutes every 3 or 4 days and just keep increasing until you don't need to wake up with an alarm. If you're really sleep deprived, I like people to do this, what I call 10 by 10 test, which is 10 days, you schedule yourself 10 hours a night in bed and you just let yourself catch up on your sleep. And by the end, hopefully the amount of sleep that you're getting will start to decrease and you'll have a better sense of how much sleep you do best with. It's about over a third of people aren't getting enough sleep on work days, and that really impairs them much more than they realize typically, at least impairs their performance.
There's right now such a hustle culture, and we have the 5 a.m. club with so many people freelancing and working on our careers and everything, that we really are only just now waking up to the realization that no, we cannot survive and thrive and be vital and healthy and long live and perform for long and better on 5 hours of sleep. So obviously the question is how long we should sleep, but I think the other question is the quality of sleep. Like if we have 12 hours of sleep but poor quality, interrupted, inconsistent sleep, we're probably not getting the same benefits as if we have, maybe it is 6 hours, maybe it is 7 hours, maybe it's not 9-10 hours, but consistent high quality sleep, that we're probably better off. So when we then talk about the quality of sleep, is there something that we can start looking into and considering to start improving or assessing the quality of sleep that we're getting?
Yeah, so I think about this in two ways. One is sleep disorders. There is a lot more discussion in social media about sleep, but not very many of those people are a sleep specialist per se. And so the conversation doesn't really get to the point of, once you've done all these lifestyle things as best you can, if you're still not sleeping well, go to a sleep specialist because you might have one of the 58 sleep disorders. Often when I say there's 58 sleep disorders, people are amazed because they thought there was, 8 or 10. And there are 58 sleep disorders. So if you are going through your days feeling fatigued and you're doing all the lifestyle things and you're getting yourself 8 or 9 hours in bed every night, but you're still just dragging, then do go to a sleep specialist and get a thorough evaluation. You could have something that is disturbing your rest. There's 4 sleep stages. And when we have a sleep disorder, many of them keep us in those lighter stages of sleep. We get more stage 1 sleep, we get more stage 2 sleep, we don't get as much REM sleep, we don't get as much stage 3 sleep, and those deficits are going to translate into some functional problems during the day. So it is important. I love when people are trying hard, but after you've tried hard for a month, then go get more help.
There's also a lot of I mean, you mentioned it earlier, the shaming, but there's a lot of stories that people tell themselves growing up, because this belief that if you need more than 5 hours sleep, you're not going to be successful. And, you know, you got to be up and about and run your business, then get the kids up, get them to school, then go to your day job and, you know, function there for 8 hours, then come home, deal with the family, run your business again, go to bed at midnight, get up at 4. You know, there's this, and I'm very much generalizing, but there's this belief that we've just, sleep is a waste of time and you got to do as much as you can with as little sleep. And I know that one of the things that I grew up with is if you wanted more sleep or lying in, you lazy. You know, this is something that I have issues with my mother, is you just being lazy. Get up. It's the birds are up, the birds are singing, you should be up. And what I've learned, you know, through reading, I think it's Matthew Walker's book, Sam, Sleep, and that really got me into learning about how important sleep is. And we've had a couple of guests come on talking about sleep, and it's realizing just because you're up with the birds and want to catch that early worm and whatever else doesn't mean I want to be up with the birds. And I had a very interesting conversation with my mother. I spent time with her in South Africa in February, and I sleep a bit longer. I need more sleep. And she came into the room and told me I was being lazy. It's a nice day and I should get up. And I'm like, I'm 50 years old. Don't tell me anymore what to do. You know, just leave me to sleep. And you know, I did say that I tried to explain to her a little bit about, you know, what I'd been researching. And I could see that she took a little bit of it on board, but she was almost at my door trying to wake me up every morning. And I wasn't getting up late. 8 o'clock in the morning is not late. But it's interesting how these stories that we most probably fed from our parents, and of course, if you have a job, you have to be at that job at a certain time. So if you are not a morning person, but your job starts at 8 o'clock in the morning, or you take the kids to school, how do you balance that in and find a way to have that extra sleep? You almost got to retrain your body, because it's not always possible to allow yourself to stay in bed as long as you would like, because, you know, life happens. But I guess then it also comes down to really making sure that you have that quality of sleep, that absolute sleep throughout the night without waking up. I mean, I have it might be more, but at the moment I have two things that wake me up. Is I'm going through the change, so being hot wakes me up, as well as I have a backache, which I'm dealing with, but that sometimes wakes me up when I'm moving. So I don't get that solid 8 hours that I need. It's broken sleep, which does impact. And realizing, you know, if you've got family or kids or dogs or something, you can't, it's not always possible to have that solid time of sleep and getting up when it suits you, as opposed to when society or your job dictates that you see. So how can what suggestions have you got around life stopping you? I'm all, if there's something is stopping you, go see a sleep specialist and do that. But sometimes the husband snoring next to you is not always, or a dog barking or something. You can't always control the external things.
Yeah. So there's a lot in your comments that I want to respond to. Hopefully I can sneak in three points here. One is that the bell curve of how much sleep adults need is 7 to 9 hours, tail end 6 to 10 hours. And it's just like any feature that human beings fall on a bell curve. You could bell curve women's height, you know, women my age, demographic, how tall are we? I'm 5'4", that's probably right smack in the middle, right? And so it's important to figure out how much sleep you do best with. The number of people who truly do fine and don't have any impairments or health consequences of getting sick is probably 2% of the population at best. So if you are constantly getting 6 hours, it's most likely that that's not enough for you. And so it's really important to figure out, okay, how much sleep do I do best with? And then aim for that. Because there's a myth that having more daytime hours is worth it. And if you need 8 and you're getting 6 hours, you have a 16-hour day or an 18-hour day instead of 16 hours. But those 18 hours, you are going to perform measurably worse than if you were well rested. Your health is going to be worse. Your blood pressure is going to be higher. Your mood is going to be worse. Your happiness corresponds with how much sleep you get. So you could have more wakeful days, but they're not going to be good quality. So are you want to have a quality daytime experience, or do you want to have more hours? And, I think that's really been kind of framed that more hours is better, but you're actually going to be less productive for 18 hours than if you got the sleep that you needed. So I would really like us to debunk that myth, because it is a myth, and there's lots and lots of scientific evidence to show that it's a myth, but it's still pretty pervasive. And then you just mentioned about, hormonal changes that can make our sleep more disruptive or disrupted. Pain, certainly people in pain can have lighter sleep, take longer to fall asleep, more wakeful periods in the night. And then there's our environment, the birds making a ruckus outside, or, LED lights in our bedrooms, or street lights shining in. People really need darkness, like camping darkness, for sleep. And that's really hard to achieve with all the night light pollution that we have. So yeah, so did that answer all of your questions, Natalie, or is there something else that I missed there?
No, it did, and I think it's something worth, just learning about our sleeping patterns. And it's almost going against the grain where, I grew up very much on the belief that 4 to 6 hours is sufficient, and then you just be busy, busy, busy. But that's changing now, and it is shifting. But one thing that often comes up is this power nap, is having naps. How does that fit into with getting a more solid night's sleep if you're having naps? Is it beneficial, or is it worth staying awake when you want to nod off on the couch so that you're more tired at night and hopefully sleep? So I'd love to know your thoughts on the naps, because I know that some people really swear by it, and I myself, I find I don't like the nap. It then disrupts my sleep even worse at night and makes me feel all groggy. But I know some people love it. So I'd love to just know your thoughts. And I'm sure our listeners would like to know, because the power nap's supposed to be powerful.
Yes. So I'm actually a fan of napping, but there's definitely some skills to napping the right way. And I have a YouTube channel. I have a YouTube that's all about napping, but let me summarize for you here now. You want to take your nap earlier in the afternoon, like 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We have an actual shift in our circadian rhythm at that time that promotes us feeling more sleepy. So we could take advantage of that. And then we cycle from light sleep to deep sleep, back up to light sleep over about 90 or 110 minutes. If you wake up out of deep sleep, you're going to feel groggy, and it takes about 20 minutes to be fully alert, oriented, and get your performance back to its normal good baseline. So you want to take either a short nap, 30 minutes or less, where you're waking up out of stage 2 sleep, which is much easier to wake out of, or you want to allow the full sleep cycle, 90 to 110 minutes. So those are 2 strategies, and you're right, you do not want to take it earlier in the later afternoon or before bed, because then that can interfere with your nighttime sleep. And the last thing is just to be clear about nodding off unintentionally versus intentionally taking a nap. If you are falling asleep unintentionally in meetings, at stop signs, that's something to check out with your physician.
When it comes to naps, I always have this memory of reading book When by Daniel Pink, because he talks about this, the thing we touched on with larks and night owls and, the timing of decisions in life. But he mentions the best way to take a nap is what he calls nappuccino, which is to take coffee, take 20, short, sweet nap, get the caffeine working. When you wake up from the nap, in 20 minutes, the caffeine is kicking in, you're ready to go. So that's just an interesting add-on onto what my research into sleep has taught me. But as I was thinking about this, I also remembered, and you were talking about like intentionally or not intentionally falling asleep. And sometimes we don't have the 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 90 minutes to take a nap, but we're really feeling like we need a rest. There are some alternatives that we could explore, and one of them that always comes to my mind is meditation or non-sleep deep rest meditative techniques, where 5-10 minutes can really boost our awareness, alertness, and help us get through the rest of the day. So aside from naps, do you have any other little tips that can help people when we're talking during the day to get alert when we maybe have not had the best night's sleep, but we want to be awake and alert and happy and healthy and productive? That what could we do aside from too much coffee?
Yeah, we call that the coffee nap strategy, and that can be effective. The other thing that people should know about our circadian system is our circadian rhythm is really, we want it to be high amplitude, where we're widely awake or we're deeply asleep, and all of our cells are like functioning well or are functioning at a high level, or they're in a rest recovery state. And the main signal that helps our circadian system have that high amplitude is sunlight and darkness. And typically people are not getting anywhere near as much light as they need during the day. So you want to be outside for 20 minutes in the first couple hours of your day. And then every couple hours, go outside without sunglasses for 10 minutes, and just get bright light. As the light changes, those light changes signal to our eye and then our brain what time of day it is. And then that signal goes throughout our body and lets our body know what physiological state we should be in. So in order to improve our alertness during the day, going outside and getting that bright light is going to help. As we mentioned, I'm a naturopathic physician, and a big part of naturopathic philosophy is nature cure and the healing power of nature. Hopefully, when you go outside, there are some natural elements. Even if you're in the city, I hope that there's some shrubs or some trees or some grass and natural elements that you can expose to. That also gives us a health burst when we're exposed to nature. Plus the movement of getting your heart rate going, getting that blood flowing, getting some good oxygenation to your brain is also going to help with alertness. So that's my strategy: is every couple hours, get up from your desk, go outside for 10 minutes, move your body, look at the plants. Yeah.
Talking about the light, and I think we discussed this before, before we went on to the recording this episode, is I live in the UK, and the UK is famous for lack of light. Nighttime light we got plenty of. So we have nighttime is actually sometimes brighter than it is during the daytime. So how can those people living in countries where there's not a lot of sunshine, and I'm not talking about in the winter, as I know you get these northern countries who have an hour's daylight in the winter, but I'm talking about, yes, it gets dark here at 10 o'clock at night, and it gets light at about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. So you do have the light, but you don't have that bright light. We've just got daylight. So is the daylight still beneficial, or are you specifically talking about the blue skies and sunshine, or just daylight?
Just daylight, just daylight. So I'll get down into some really specific recommendations here. On your phone, you can download what's called a lux meter. It's spelled Lux, and 1 lux is equal to 1 candle flame. During the day, we are supposed to be getting 250 lux or more. Typically, an office will be about 150, or a home environment or a grocery store. So we are not getting enough light in our built environment during the day. And then 3 hours before bed, we're supposed to get into a sunset-like condition where it's only 10 lux or less with no blue light. I think for many of us, 3 hours before bed, we're still in a pretty active part of our day. And so for that reason, I think it's a good idea for probably anyone who has electric light in their homes or computers to have some blue blocking glasses. These are mine. You can see they have a very reddish hue to the lens. That is essential. If you have some that just have this yellow lens, that's not enough to signal to your body that it's sunset, it's nighttime, it's time to start getting into a physiological sleep state. You need this strong reddish lens. And then at bed during sleep hours, it's supposed to be 1 lux or less. A really easy hack is when you're in bed tonight and you've got the shades closed and the lights off, put your hand out at arm's distance and see if you can see your fingers wiggling. If you can see your fingers wiggling, that is too much light. It needs to be really dark. And, you asked about the cloud cover. Outside, even on a cloudy day, it'll be 10,000 lux or more, even on a cloudy day. So that's a great thing for people to play around with. I did that a couple months ago, and I have computer screen here, computer screen to the side, overhead lights, a lamp, big sliding glass doors, window over on this side. And even in my office, it was 160 lux. I went outside, it was 1600 lux. So that's really, and it was an overcast like February day. So it wasn't very bright outside, but it was still, 10 times brighter outdoors. So we really need to be getting outdoors. Indoors, I shared those recommendations with a lighting designer, and he said, oh my goodness, most people would say, turn the lights down if it was 250 lux indoors. That would seem abnormally bright in an indoor environment.
This is so interesting. And one thing, I don't know if it's really related or if it's not, but talking about weather and stuff really makes me think about how the temperature of the weather outside really impacts our sleep, because we were talking again earlier that right now in Czech Republic we have heat wave, you have heat wave, Natalie's suffering in the cold Britain. But I'm sure that heat must impact our sleep as well, because again, naturally our body temperature kind of dips and rises throughout our cycle. And when we then go through periods of time where it's really hot, we don't have AC, we don't have any way to really temperature control our houses, then how our sleep suffers from there. And again, is there something we could do when we maybe don't have the option of having AC to at least help ourselves to improve the sleep?
Yeah, that's a great point, because as we're sitting recording, like sweat is dripping off me. It is so hot where I am, and it's only beginning of July, so we haven't even hit August. Yes, our natural. So there's a couple things. When the ambient temperature outside drops, it gets dark, the temperature drops, that ambient temperature change helps signal to our bodies that it's time to switch into a sleep physiology. And a natural occurrence when we're starting to fall asleep, part of our circadian system, is that our temperature, our internal temperature, our core body temperature deep in our trunk actually decreases, and that decrease in our core body temperature actually helps us fall asleep. So we want to have both of those things occur. And when it's really hot out, it is hard to do so. So there's many strategies that people can use. One is if you have a lower level in your home, do sleep down there. In our house, we have a lower level that isn't bedrooms, but it's the TV room is in the lower level, but we drag our mattresses down there and we'll sleep down there when it's a heat wave. Other things we've done, which kids particularly love, is we've occasionally taken our mattress out to the patio and slept outside, and we just put a like mosquito netting. We sleep underneath the mosquito netting, and the kids love that. Family sleep out, camp out. You can also get fabric sheets and sleepwear that is particularly designed to be moisture and heat wicking. These were originally designed for women having night sweats, but now you can get it for people of all ages and genders. So bedding, sheet sets, and sleepwear. You can, really simple, easy hack is to put your sheets in the freezer during the day, and then when you get to bed, just put them on the bed then, so they're nice and cool. Of course, keep your shades closed and whatnot during the day so that the heat doesn't, the shades reflect the heat and it doesn't have as much heat build up here. There are some electrical products that are like they're basically mattress pads that are cooling, so that you could go for those higher tech options. But yeah, and then taking a cool shower before bed can also help a person keep cool, and you definitely want to do those kinds of strategies. There's pillows you can get that have a cooling type of material in them that can also be helpful. So, with the climate crisis, we can anticipate that we're going to need these skills. And so I encourage people to take some time to start figuring out what works in your home, and then also to do those long-term strategies. I was just reading yesterday, I'm writing a blog post, a newsletter about what to do for the heat. And we have these what are called urban heat islands, where our cities, where most people are living nowadays, and more people will be living in cities over the next decades, they have these urban heat islands where at night a city is 2 to 5 degrees hotter than the surrounding rural areas, just because of the lack of greenery and all of the heat that is generated by our electricity. So, do what you can in terms of planting around your house to shade windows, participate in neighborhood efforts to green your neighborhoods, plant street trees, plant shrubberies. Here in my neighborhood, we often have this road, a little planting strip, maybe 10 feet wide, and then the sidewalk. But all of those planting strips between the road and the sidewalk could be planted with greenery, which is going to help keep the heat down. And I think we need to be thinking about these solutions also just societally, like how are we going to keep people cool, because tempers flare when people aren't sleeping well. And tempers also flare when people are too hot. So we want to help everybody keep cool, sleep well, get along.
You definitely shared so many great tips already on sleep and improving sleep and quality. But could we talk about maybe some of the more common or well-known issues with sleep, be it insomnia, issues falling asleep, or stuff like that? Are there any tips or insights that you could share with people who may struggle really with falling asleep or staying asleep, who may have insomnia or insomnia related symptoms?
Yeah, so chronic insomnia is when you're having difficulty with sleep 3 nights a week for 3 months or more. One of the things that's the literature shows is that people typically wait about 7 years of having insomnia problems before they see a physician. In that time, they'll, ask for help from their friends or family or tips. They'll read up books or online or something, but they won't see a physician until 7 years. So I encourage you, if you have had sleep problems for 3 months or more, that you do go to see an expert sooner or later. One of the challenges with one of the contributing factors can be this kind of muted circadian system. So you want to do those practices that we already talked about. Another thing that is really common is that people will have a racing mind at night where they get into bed and like Natalie was saying, often you're so busy during the day that once you get into bed is the first time you have like undisturbed time to like process your thoughts. And that I think can contribute to that racing mind. So I really highly recommend that people an hour before bed or so, approximately, removed from bedtime, certainly, spend 5 to 10 minutes processing your thoughts of the day, whether it's, wrapping up your to-do list and making your to-do list for the next day, or if it's, journaling about that awkward conversation. We've all had those conversations that we wish had gone differently, and just processing those thoughts and leaving them on the paper. And then when you get into bed, have the attitude that my bedtime that I'm in bed is time that I am mentally off duty, and that you're not taking your thoughts to bed with you. That I know can sound hard, but it's a skill, and any skill we can all learn, right? At first, it might be hard to put those thoughts aside, but come up with some kind of mantra like, I already thought about that. I will have time tomorrow. Now is my time to rest. And you're really setting up boundaries that you are not a human. What's the saying? You're not a human doing, you're a human being. And however many hours you've been awake and doing stuff, that's enough. I give you permission to say, that's enough. It's time to rest.
And I think it goes back to what Natalie was talking about. It's the permission and removing any kind of a judgment from sleep. It is the allowing ourselves to give our body, our mind and soul the amount of time it really needs and deserves. And it can be quite difficult in our busy lives, especially when we have kids and family and cats. In my case, it took me a while to train myself and my cat to be in sync with our sleeping patterns. Do you have any tips for, families with kids or pets who may cause some sleep challenges for maintaining a good night's sleep? What to do to maybe get back faster to sleep or to manage these kind of interrupted sleep nights?
Yes, yes. And I do want to acknowledge that sometimes we're in a life circumstance where we do need to care for others in the middle of the night. Children need care at times in the middle of the night, partners, other household members, they may be ill, they may be injured, they may be elderly, they may need care in the middle of the night. And I'm not saying that that doesn't happen or that we shouldn't, of course, be there for our loved ones. If you are needing to get up in the night and take care of things, I would recommend, one, you really keep the lights low. Even just a flash of having regular lighting in your home is enough to suppress your melatonin. 5 minutes of having the lights on to change a diaper or whatever you need to do, and then go back to bed. That 5 minutes of having the lights full force is enough to suppress your melatonin and make it more difficult to fall back to sleep. So keep the lights as low as you can for safety in your task. And then the other thing is not to have the lights shine on your eyes. Have night lights or shaded lamps that are on tables that will light what you need to do, but are not getting the light on your eyes. That's going to make a big difference. And then to have some kind of sleep promoting practice that you do as soon as you get into bed. And I know that there's apps and stuff. I am more of a fan of people learning a strategy that is completely self-sustaining that they can do on their own. Doesn't require turning on the phone to activate the app or anything of that nature. Things like get into bed and do a meditation or tell yourself a story. I really like that. Choose out one story that you think is sweet, is calming, is kind of boring, and just have that be your sleep story. And you get into bed and you immediately start reciting the story at the beginning. And you'll find that over a repetition, you'll fall asleep quicker and quicker because you'll have this story. I do that, and I have one story, and I only ever think about it if I'm not falling asleep easily, or if I'm doing a podcast and I mention it. Otherwise, I don't think about it, but I fall asleep quite early in the story. And basically if I realize I'm not asleep when I'm in bed, I just do the story. You could do progressive muscle relaxation. That could be really good for people who feel restless, physically restless, or too hot, is to start with your toes, tighten your muscles for a count of 7, then relax them and let them fall heavy in the bed, and just really slowly move through your body. You could do a gratitude practice. That can be a really nice, gentle way to drift off to sleep. And there are several other strategies that you can do. I think that's a great practice after getting up and caring for others.
I love the idea of telling yourself a story, because so many people will fall asleep with a movie, with a series, with some screen, or even with a podcast, with headphones in, with something playing. And I love the fact that we can, pick your favorite movie and remember not your favorite movie maybe, but a movie that there is a decent plot in there that you kind of can narrate in your mind. And instead of playing the movie on Netflix, then just play it in your mind. And you don't need to pay for Netflix subscription. Easy. But talking of like watching TV late at night or working at night, I would love if we can look at kind of some practical framework. I know that our listeners will love a little bit of a kind of summary guidance, how they can plan their lifestyle to, be sleepy when they really want to be sleepy and be alert when they want to be alert. Do you have something that you could tell people, like in an ideal world, for most people, obviously, understanding that everyone is different, but this is maybe the structure of your day to pay attention to these particular points and these particular times of day to really make sure that we get the best sleep possible.
Yeah, I love that question. I think about it as a sleep healthy lifestyle, and it pretty much starts when you get up. Ideally, you don't want your wake time or bedtime to vary more than half an hour across all days of the week, which means you align your work hours as best you can. Of course, we've got bosses who may not agree, so that may be a constraint, but as best you can, I plan your lifestyle that you're waking up within the same 30 minutes across all 7 days of the week, or minimize it any difference as best you can. Get up, have breakfast within an hour. If you skip breakfast, it's going to push you to be more of a night owl. And for many of us, particularly people with insomnia, we want to physiologically shift to be more of a morning person as we can. So get up, have breakfast within an hour, get light within 2 hours, and then get your 10-minute bursts of light throughout the day. Have breakfast, lunch, dinner, snack, all within the same half hour. Those cues of your meal times actually help set the peripheral clocks, which would be the circadian rhythms in our cells. So you want to have regular meal times, and you want to stop eating between meals. You want it to be like meal, fast for 3 or 4 or 5 hours, however long you go, have another distinct meal, and then fast. Grazing is going to mute this circadian signal. You want to exercise before 4 o'clock if you want to feel sleepy earlier in the day. Exercise after 7 p.m. if you want to not get sleepy until later at night. And then on your phone, I like to set an alarm. The only alarm that I really like people to set is on your phone for wind down time, whether, ideally about 2 hours before bed, an hour, and at that time, gather up all of the devices in your home, dock them in a neutral room, charge them overnight or whatnot. Put on your blue blocking glasses if you're gonna watch TV, turn down the lights. What we did in our home is I designated certain lamps that are just for wind down time, and they have dim lights and they're very yellowish, so it looks kind of like sunset in our house in the evening for those hours before bed, and that's really helpful, and it's less than 10 lux. And then do your practice of, wrapping up the day, discharging your thoughts on the paper, and establishing, okay, I'm done being a doer. I'm gonna just rest and restore now. Do something relaxing in those, the hour before bed. Take a bath can be helpful, physiologically helpful for sleep. Do some, listen to an audiobook, hang out with your loved ones, talk with a friend on the phone, something of that nature, listen to music, do a craft or a hobby or something, chill, and then go to bed.
And that's very practical and simple suggestions, which is what we like, because it's not about making lives more complicated, but actually simplifying and being more being as in doing. And that's really, really helpful. Thank you. And it's we can talk for hours on sleep. I mean, sleep is so important for our mental health, for our physical well-being, for our happiness, for our brains to function. For there's so many things where sleep is so important, and as I mentioned, we can go for hours. But I really appreciate that you are here. It's early morning for you, and I know it's really hot, but you can't see that you are suffering in the heat there. But one thing that we do like to do is offer a space where we always like to have a little bit more. And, whether it's last tips or advice, or if you want to go over something we've already spoken about, or is there something that you wish that we had asked about? Is there something there that we've not asked and you're thinking, I need to share this, I want to share this? It's basically just creating a space for a last piece of gold nugget that we can share with our listeners.
Yeah, I would really invite people to take 10 days of doing this sleep healthy lifestyle. Incorporate those lighting suggestions that we talked about, the 250 lux during the day, 10 lux for 3 hours before bed, 1 or less at nighttime, and those regular meal times. I do have a free guide that goes into that, and people can make their custom plan. So I can give that to folks if you'd like. And yeah, I think 10 days of getting really good sleep, you will feel the difference.
Thank you. And we will share the link for your free guide. I'm sure our listeners will really appreciate that, because it's, they could be listening to this on the train and then forget the suggestions that you've given, and that can help to slowly get things into place. Because as you said, it might be different blinds or different bedding or different types of bulbs, and they don't happen overnight. Sometimes you've got to plan. So that free gift is wonderful. Thank you. So thank you so much for sharing your knowledge, your experience, and just what you've learned about sleep, because without sleep we can't survive. I mean, it's, yes, we need water, we need water, and we need sleep, and then I think we need food. So we do need sleep to survive. It's not that it's just something that's on a whim or a fad. It is so important. And thank you so much for carrying on with the conversations that we've had over the last couple of years about sleep, and just sharing some really useful tips. So we really appreciate it. But now if somebody is thinking, I need more than just this free guide thing, I want to, you know, speak with Catherine, I need some help, or I need suggestions on, do I have one of these sleep disorders or whatever it is, where can people find you?
Yeah, so I'm really on a mission of improving education around sleep. I've done, 20 years of working with people one-on-one, which has been gratifying. And it's also hard to change a culture when you're working one-on-one. So now I've been doing more informational services. I have a YouTube at Be a Skilled Sleeper, which has a ton of resources. And I also have a weekly newsletter, Be a Skilled Sleeper. People can sign up for that. And then if you'd like to take a course, I have some courses that I have customized to people in unique circumstances and the needs that are unique to those circumstances. Like I've got a course for women's sleep. I've got a course for families. I've got one for corporate leaders, for shift workers. And that really allows us within a reasonable amount of time, they're about 3.5 hours, to do a deep dive into the issues that people are likely to experience in that situation and really guide you through rebuilding your sleep. That's what the courses are all about. Those are at skilledsleeper.com.
Thank you so much. So it's basically, remember Skill Sleeper, and you'll find you on YouTube and your newsletter and these courses. And these courses sound really great because they're not long courses, but they can be really beneficial. And we will have all your links in the description so that people can click on them easily. So once again, thank you so much for sharing your time with us and your energy and just helping us have better sleep and to find ways that's help suit us as individuals to find the right sleeping rhythm and sleeping patterns. And for our listeners, what have you got from today? Are you one that's just put your head on the pillow and lights out and off you go for 6 to 8 hours, whatever you need, and wake up refreshed? Or are you like about 98% of the population, you have broken sleep or you're struggling to sleep and you still wake up a bit tired in the morning? We'd love to hear, what are your thoughts about sleep, and what are your experiences with the way that you're sleeping? Do you have better nights? Do you have nights where you just really struggle to just find that calmness, to just, shut those eyes, count those sheep, and then go into dreamland? Or is this something that you really want to find ways that you can help yourself to have more sleep and better sleep, because you do understand the benefits of it, but you're not actually having the benefits for yourself? So we would just love to know your thoughts and ideas around sleep. And until the next time, we'll talk to you soon. Bye.
If you enjoyed listening to our conversation, please share it with your friends and colleagues, and don't forget to subscribe. We would love it if you could give us a 5-star rating and write a short review.